Life is so much more than a diagnosis. It's about sharing time with those you love, hanging with friends who lift you up, and experiencing all those moments that bring you joy. All hits, no skips. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you. So long live singing to the oldies, jamming out to something new, and everything in between.
The sudden disappearance of a mother of 5 has raised suspicions. Could her lover be withholding crucial information? Detectives relentlessly pursue every lead, unraveling a web of lies and deceit to uncover the truth. What happened to 33-year-old Marian Fye? What happens when love becomes fatal? This is the Fatal Attraction Podcast with Never to Return.
A single mother of 5 thinks she's finally found the one.
She really felt secure with him.
He really embraced the role of father figure.
They are getting pretty serious.
But then she vanishes.
She walks down the street to the club.
She never returned back home.
As a dark secret come back to haunt her.
She kept going back into this dark place.
She had disappeared on her own.
Or will a chilling discovery reveal that the truth is far more sinister?
Upstairs in the bedroom, they discovered blood.
Could she be dead?
At this point, we don't know where the body could be.
Proving a murder case without a dead body is almost impossible.
So what happened to the body? I think we're gonna find the body.
December 5th, 2003. It's Friday afternoon in the nation's capital, and the 5th District Police Precinct on the city's northeast side is gearing up for another long weekend ahead.
Northeast Washington was very violent. It was very much controlled by drug dealers, particularly crack cocaine during this time.
Back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, it was an area overrun by gangs, which in DC are called crews. So it was considered a rough area.
It's a part of town where bad things happen, the fear of which brings 33-year-old Divine Austin into the station that afternoon.
I'm here to file a missing persons report.
Divine went to police to report his girlfriend missing.
Who is it? What's her name?
Her name's Marian Fye.
He tells police he and Marian have been together for 6 months. They recently got engaged.
Divine told the cops that she had left to go clubbing and that she would be back later.
She went out for a little while and she just never came back.
He was really concerned. He was very worried.
No one has heard from her. No one has seen her. Her kids are asking for her.
She had 5 children that she cared very much for and took very good care of them.
This is not normal.
You have to help me find her, please.
She can take
36-year-old Marian Fye valued family above all else.
She was very close to her family.
As Marian and her siblings got older, they remained very close. They even lived in the same subdivision together in DC, and they talked pretty much every day.
But even though Marian was one of 6 siblings, she never got lost in the crowd.
Everyone was drawn to her. She was extremely fun, extremely upbeat.
She was energetic. She was super outgoing.
Marian was the life of the party.
Although for much of her life, Marian partied too hard for her own good.
She had been a drug addict.
During the crack epidemic in the 80s and 90s, drugs were pretty much everywhere in D.C.
At times, Marian would disappear on a drug binge, on an alcohol binge, partying with friends.
And Marian's partying lifestyle took a toll on her romantic relationships for many years.
Her first relationship crumbled. and she found herself a single mother.
It was very difficult for Marian trying to struggle, be a single parent, hold it all together at the same time while she's looking for love.
Her next boyfriend went by the name of Mark Hill. They hit it off when they met each other.
Finally, in a stable and loving relationship, Marian was able to put her partying days behind her.
Since she had cleaned up, they have 3 kids together, and she really felt like she found her soulmate.
But after 15 years together, their relationship fell apart.
This was really rough for her.
She kept going back into this dark place with the drinking and the drugging.
After a 3rd failed relationship and pregnant with her 5th child, Marian found the determination to turn her life around.
She knew she had to pick herself up.
She started taking paralegal courses to further her education.
She also kicked her drug habit, this time for good.
She cleaned up her act. She was moving forward.
Most of all, she focused on being a mother.
She tried to really be a part of everything that was going on with her children.
She wouldn't do it alone either. In the summer of 2003, Marian's brother introduced her to his friend, Divine Austin.
When Marian first saw him, she thought he was very attractive. He was tall, he was built.
Divine was a smooth talker, extremely charming.
He definitely swept Marian off her feet.
Over the next few weeks, as Marian got to know Divine, their connection grew.
He was raised in a traditional family, a religious family. He grew up in North Carolina, but wanted a better life in a bigger city. So he moved up to D.C.
He just wants to expand his horizons. He wants more for himself.
Before long, Marian and her new man were inseparable.
You didn't see Marian without Divine. You didn't see Divine without Marian. She had someone who loved her, someone she loved.
Divine was equally as devoted to her children.
Divine right away jumps into being a father figure.
He really took to Marian's children.
The children liked Divine. He seemed to be acting in a parental role towards them.
He was, kind of strict and kind of a no-nonsense, old-school kind of guy.
They saw him as a role model. They really cared for him. And Marian really liked that. Here was somebody now with her children who can help her out.
Marian really feels like this is the one. He was her soulmate, and she's ready to settle down.
And it was soon obvious that Divine felt the same.
As the relationship went on, he proposed, and they decided that they were going to get married.
But now, 6 months into their engagement, Marian has mysteriously disappeared.
When was the last time you saw her?
Friday night.
Divine tells the police he hasn't seen his fiancée in a full week, and he's starting to get concerned.
I was afraid something like this might happen.
What do you mean?
He tells detectives that Marian has had a history with drugs and alcohol.
Sometimes in the past, she would drink and then disappear.
However, he says that since they've been engaged, that has not been a thing.
But Friday, she started talking about going out.
He says Marian talked about her wanting to go out and go drinking with her friends, and he wasn't too excited about the whole idea of her doing that, but he trusts her.
But was Divine's trust in Marian a mistake?
He gave police officers the name of the club, and they'd go to the club to check this out.
They showed a photo, and no one could say that she was even there.
If she had lied about going to the club, what else could she have been lying about?
Will these new clues bring DC detectives closer to the mysterious disappearance of Marian Fye?
Life is so much more than a diagnosis. It's about sharing time with those you love, hanging with friends who lift you up, and experiencing all those moments that bring you joy. All hits, no skips. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you. So long live singing to the oldies, jamming out to something new, and everything in between.
After overcoming her addictions, It appeared that single mom, Marian Phi, had a promising future ahead with fiancé Divine Austin.
She really felt like she found her soulmate.
He stepped up to the plate, helped her raise the children, and he was a great father figure.
But now, 6 months after she said yes to Divine's proposal, Marian has vanished.
Divine told police last Friday that Marian had gone out to meet some friends at a club.
She simply walked down the street to the club and she never came back.
And you're sure that's the only place that she was going to go that night?
That's what she says, but I just don't know anymore.
We're going to check it out. We'll get back to you.
Thank you.
After taking a photo of Marian to the club and showing it to everyone, no one had seen her there. So evidently, Marian had never made it to the club.
Detectives assigned to the case must now look into the possibility that Marian had lied to Divine.
Marian did have a history of drug and alcohol abuse.
Because of her past addictions. Divine believes that she's out there somewhere either drinking or drugging, and that she will eventually come home, but it's been a week.
Looking for more information, detectives head to Marian's home to speak with her children.
The children were interviewed together in the presence of Divine.
The kids just told the cops that nothing out of the ordinary had happened that evening.
I was here playing video games, and Mom said she was going out.
I wanted to talk to her the next morning, but I guess she never made it back.
Based on the kids' statements, the detectives figured Divine's being straight with them.
What time did she leave the house?
10 o'clock or thereabout.
And when did you realize that she hadn't made it home?
Not until Saturday morning, after I woke up.
He figured she'd be back eventually, but it had been a week, so he was getting really worried.
Can you think of anywhere else she might have gone?
She may have gone to go see her ex.
Who's that?
His name is Mark Hill.
They have 3 kids together.
Though Marian has primary custody of the children, they still go over there and see their father pretty regularly.
Well, what makes you think she would have gone over there?
According to Divine, he fears that the kids weren't the only reason that Mark was still in Marian's life.
He believed that this man was feeding Marian's addiction.
Mark's known her for a long time, back when she was into all that kind of stuff.
There were rumors that Marian wanted to get back together with Mark.
Despite rumors of a possible reconciliation, Divine says that if something bad has happened to Marian, it's likely Mark who is responsible.
Divine told police that the relationship between Marian and Mark wasn't always a great one, that sometimes it had gotten kind of violent.
However, there's someone else Divine says detectives should look into. His ex, Allison Thomas.
He says that Marian recently had a run-in with Allison.
He tells police that Allison, who he describes as a crack user, came by their house to ask for money.
Marian refused, and they got into an argument.
Marian ended up beating up Allison pretty badly.
Now Divine wonders whether the bad blood between the two women could have something to do with Marian's disappearance.
He believed that Allison probably was going to get back at Marian.
After talking to Divine, detectives contact Mark Hill and ask him to come into the station to answer a few questions.
So when was the last time you saw Marian?
A few days before Thanksgiving.
And when did you learn that she was missing?
Last Saturday when Divine came and dropped off the kids.
He was very surprised that Divine had brought the children over, that it wasn't Marian.
Divine said that she was probably sleeping off a hangover, but that didn't sound right to me.
Mark tells the police that in the past, Marian did have an issue with alcohol, but she had gotten under control and that hadn't been a thing in years.
Divine had also accused Mark of smoking crack with Marian, but he vehemently denied this.
In turn, Mark also has a few things to say about Divine.
What Mark Hill said about Divine was that initially he actually liked him. He thought he was a good influence on the children, but he did notice that as time went on, he felt that Marian was getting much quieter and was cowed by Divine, which was not really her personality generally.
Mark tells the police that Divine and Marian were always at it. They always were arguing.
But is that true? Or is Mark just trying to point the finger back at Divine?
Where were you last Friday night?
Home? Watching TV?
He has this weak alibi, though, so they're not exactly ready to scratch him off the list yet.
However, since detectives have nothing to hold him on, they let Mark go and then bring Divine's ex, Allison Williams, in for questioning.
Police talked to Allison about this fight that her and Marian had.
She said she had no involvement in Marian Fi's disappearance.
She tells the police that that's the last she'd heard from her.
But Allison does say there may be someone else who knows what happened to Marian.
She reveals to police that another woman was involved.
She says it's Michelle Parker, who lives down the street.
Apparently, Michelle and Divine recently started hooking up.
Will these new clues bring DC detectives closer to the mysterious disappearance of Marian Fi?
Life is so much more than a diagnosis. It's about sharing time with those you love, hanging with friends who lift you up, and experiencing all those moments that bring you joy. All hits, no skips. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you. So long live singing to the oldies, jamming out to something new, and everything in between.
Washington, D.C. detectives investigating the disappearance of 36-year-old Marian Fi have just learned that the missing woman's fiancé may have been seeing someone on the side.
Her name is Michelle Parker, and she lived next door to Marian and Divine.
Could the alleged love triangle have something to do with Marian's disappearance?
Maybe Michelle got tired of being Divine's side chick, and with Marian out of the way, she'd be free to take her place.
When detectives bring Michelle in for questioning, she says her relationship with Divine and his fiancé was entirely innocent.
She said that from time to time, Marian would watch her kids, and in return, she would do her hair. But that was pretty much it.
She said, yep, Divine would flirt with me, and there was nothing reciprocated in that process.
When detectives ask about Marian's disappearance, Michelle insists that she had nothing to do with it.
She said, I don't know what happened with Marian.
Michelle does have a theory, however, and it lines up with what Divine has already told them about Marian.
In Michelle's point of view, this is something that she would do from time to time, that it wasn't strange for her to go off missing, go drinking with friends for a while and then reappear.
Michelle also has an alibi for the night Marian disappeared.
When police asked Michelle what she was doing Friday night, she says she was just hanging out with friends.
With Michelle looking like another dead end, detectives ask Marian's sister to come in for a statement.
Marian had a sister, Cecilia, who everybody called Peaches. And Peaches was really the leader of the sister group.
Police sit down with Peaches, and Peaches tells the police more about the relationship between Divine and Marian.
She loves that man. She really does.
She says this was a good relationship for Marian.
In fact, Peaches says that it was Divine who first raised the alarm after Marian went missing.
Peaches tells police that on that Saturday, Divine came by the house asking if she knew where her sister was.
He was afraid that she got drunk and got into trouble.
So what do you think?
Well, Marian did have some issues in the past.
They knew Marian had an addiction, but Marian was also a mother, and she took care of her children. She made sure that her kids were taken care of. It was unusual for Marian not to do that.
And that's not all that bothers Peaches about her sister's disappearance.
Peaches said, Marian had not been out like this in a while. She only drank socially, but she had not been staying out.
She had conquered that demon.
Something more is going on here other than a regular drug or alcohol binge.
Peaches says she doesn't know what happened to her sister, but does mention that Divine has been acting strange since Marian disappeared.
Peaches tells the police since Marian has gone missing that there are rumors that Divine has been seeing someone else.
That struck Marian's family as very odd and very insulting. They were worried, frantic, trying to figure out where Marian is, and you're out as if you are a unattached man all of a sudden.
Were the two alleged relationships just rumors? Or was Marian's fiancé actually cheating on her?
Police then circled back to Divine to question him about Michelle and about the nature of their relationship.
Yeah, I flirted with her. That's all it was.
He assures police that he has never had anything romantic with Michelle and that they are just friends.
However, Divine also says that Marian suspected that there was something going on between him and Michelle.
That's why she left Friday.
Divine tells police that they had been fighting, they'd been arguing.
At some point, Marian says she's had enough, and she decided to leave.
So she stormed out and just never came back.
Yeah. She said she was going to the club, but when she didn't come back...
He thought maybe she'd gone to Peach's or one of her other sisters' places to cool off.
But then after she did not contact the children, after he hadn't heard anything from her, he believed that something had to be wrong. So he calls the police.
When police asked Divine why he didn't mention Michelle in the first place, he said he didn't want to say anything because he just knew it would look bad.
That, of course, also made the police suspicious.
We'll be in touch.
Still, detectives have no proof that anything has actually happened to Marian. But as days and then weeks pass with no word from her, Marian's family fears she isn't coming back.
The kids are now living with Marian's sisters. When Christmas came and went, and still, Marian was not anywhere to be found. Her family really began believing that she was not just missing, but that she was dead.
The detectives also suspect they're now working a homicide.
There was some monitoring we were doing of Marian Fai's accounts, and we were able to see she wasn't withdrawing money from her bank accounts. She wasn't using her cell phone.
There was no sign that Marian was anywhere. She literally disappeared.
But just as the case is growing cold, Marian's sister contacts the detectives.
The family had started to talk to Marian Fai's children.
The kids had started to tell their aunts what they had overheard the night of their mom's disappearance.
They heard Marian and Divine arguing the night that Marian went missing.
But that's not all that Marian's children had heard.
They heard a loud bang, a gunshot.
Will these new clues bring DC detectives closer to the mysterious disappearance of Marian Fai?
Life is so much more than a diagnosis. It's about sharing time with those you love, hanging with friends who lift you up, and experiencing all those moments that bring you joy. All hits, no skips. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you. So long live singing to the oldies, jamming out to something new, and everything in between.
More than a month after Marian Fai disappeared from her Washington, D.C. home, her sister has contacted police with a jaw-dropping accusation.
Marian's kids heard what possibly could have been Marian being murdered.
The police are kind of skeptical because they had already gone over to the house. They had interviewed the kids.
When they were interviewed the first time, they basically said, we don't know what happened to our mother.
But now detectives wonder, had Marian's children been too afraid to tell the truth the first time?
The children were interviewed in the presence of Divine.
If he hurt their mom and killed her or did something to her, what would he do to them?
He was an intimidating figure to these children. Initially, they saw him as kind of a father figure, but then as time went on, he became harsher to them.
They were very afraid of Divine. And when Divine told detectives that nothing unusual happened, that Marian up and walked out the home on her own, the kids agreed.
During the call with Peaches, detectives ask her to bring Marian's 2 oldest children in for an interview. This time, without Divine.
Okay, you guys, listen, just tell them exactly what you told me, okay?
The homicide detective was then able to start getting the true story, which was the story that the children were telling their relatives, not what they told the police the first time.
Marian's daughter says that she was down in the basement playing video games and she heard a loud bang. She heads upstairs to find Divine, basically telling her that, everything's fine. Just go back downstairs.
What was that noise?
It was nothing.
Marian's son tells police that he heard arguing between Marian and Divine downstairs, and then he heard what he thought was a gunshot. When he came downstairs to see what it was, he said he saw Divine holding what appeared to be a gun.
Go back to your room. Just go to bed.
They're very scared. None of them see their mother at that point.
The next morning, Divine took the kids to their father's house.
The kids say when they asked where their mother was, Divine said that she had gone out and hadn't made it back yet.
And after that date, they never saw nor spoke to their mother again. And that's what ultimately convinced the police that this was possibly going to be a nobody murder case.
But that doesn't mean they're ready to arrest Divine for murder.
The children never saw a body. They never saw any blood.
None of them were eyewitnesses to the murder. They had heard a gunshot. They had heard an argument. They had heard some suspicious noise.
There's really no way to prove that a murder even occurred.
Determined to find the proof they need, detectives return to what they believe to be the scene of Marian's murder.
At that point, Divine was still in the house, but seemingly pretty cooperative. The detective asked them if they could do a consent search on the house, and Divine agreed.
While the CSI team goes to work, detectives pull Divine aside for a few questions.
The kids said they heard a gunshot the night Marian disappeared.
That's crazy.
He said that he and Marian did have an argument that night. He says after she stormed out of the house, he was angry, so he crashed down into a chair. And when he did that, the chair broke.
He said that's what the kids heard at the time. But he insisted that Marian was not shot, that no one was shot.
But while detectives talk to Divine, the CSI team uncovers evidence that appears to contradict his claim.
Police find a shell casing in the bedroom.
It's a .22 caliber, like the gun Marian's son said he saw Divine holding the night his mother disappeared.
Now, it's possible that was another shell casing, but we believe that was a shell casing related to the murder.
Detectives also locate other evidence, suggesting that Marian didn't leave the house alive.
When they went back in the house, her cell phone was there, her purse was there.
Her car keys, driver's license, virtually anything that most people would never leave the house without was found and recovered.
But the most damning find of all is hidden beneath their sheets.
The crime scene tech went to the bed and immediately saw it was soaked with blood.
It's soaked so much that it's soaked all the way down to the box spring.
Someone could not possibly be alive, having lost that much blood.
Will these new clues bring DC detectives closer to the mysterious disappearance of Marian Fye?
Detectives investigating the disappearance of 36-year-old Marian Fye have just made a chilling discovery in the Washington, D.C. townhouse she shares with fiancé Divine Austin.
When they go upstairs, here they find a mattress with a lot of blood.
We knew at that point we really have to figure out what is going on.
However, detectives still don't arrest Divine.
We'll be in touch.
They have no way of proving without a doubt that the blood is Marian's.
We didn't have any DNA from Marian Fye.
So police get a DNA sample from Marian's mother to compare with the blood that was found on the mattress.
It's not 100%, but that could determine if the blood on the mattress came from someone related to Marian's mom.
While waiting for the test results, the detectives keep Divine under surveillance. And it's not long before they spot something suspicious.
They find that he's driving a car that he had never driven before.
It's registered to a woman by the name of Brianna Ellis.
If Divine is driving Brianna's car, this leads police to believe maybe Brianna had something to do with Marian's disappearance.
Digging deeper into the DMV records reveals something else. Something that has detectives scratching their heads.
They find something strange with this car. It had recently been in a wreck with a car that belonged to Marian Fye. They also see that Marian filed a claim with her insurance company and even signed for a check.
The date of the claim was December 3rd, 2 days after Marian disappeared.
How in the world was she involved in an accident and getting a check from the insurance company after she was missing?
Could Marian still be alive? Detectives contact her insurance company and soon find the answer.
Police look at Marian's signature and they look at the signature on the insurance claim. They definitely don't match.
Hoping to uncover who signed the insurance forms, detectives bring Brianna Ellis in for questioning.
We believed she was at the very least involved in this insurance scam, and maybe she did have some involvement in the disappearance.
Police bring Brianna into the station, and immediately Brianna seems very confused. Then she starts to tell them exactly what happened.
She admitted, yes, there was an accident.
She had actually accidentally rear-ended Divine on December 1st when Divine was driving Marian Fye's car, and it was her fault. Divine had gotten out. They had exchanged information. Divine, in his way, began to charm Brianna because, of course, at this time, Divine had an opening for a girlfriend.
So the accident wasn't a setup?
We thought that this accident was a setup to make it look like Marian Fye was actually alive.
But based on what Brianna is telling them, that doesn't appear to be the case.
This is how they first met.
Divine phoned her a few days later, ostensibly to talk about this car accident, and they very quickly started dating.
Boy, could he charm some women.
He seemed like a really nice guy. He said his fiance had just left him.
Divine told Brianna the same stories that he had told Marian's family, going on a crack binge, drinking binge, that she had abandoned the kids.
After hearing Divine's sob story, Brianna decided to help him out with the insurance company.
Divine asked her to say that Marian was driving the car.
He thought that if the insurance company knew that he was driving the car, they wouldn't cover the cost for repairing the car.
I just felt sorry for him.
Brianna filed a false police report and a false insurance claim.
It had nothing to do with him showing that Marian Fye was still alive. He had done it because he realized he could get $400 or $500 from this 2-bit rear-end accident, and that's the only reason why he did it. He's not a criminal mastermind.
Brianna says she'd stopped seeing Divine soon after he'd settled the insurance claim.
She pretty quickly kicked him to the curb and ended the relationship. So when we spoke to her, she was not only fully cooperative, she was quite embarrassed by how naive she had been and how she really felt she had been played by Divine.
I had no idea. I swear.
She was horrified with what we had told her had happened to Marian Fye. She was horrified to think that she had actually dated someone who was involved in this.
Thank you so much for coming in. You're free to go.
When detectives look into Brianna's story, it appears to check out.
She had absolutely nothing to do with Marian Fye's disappearance or murder.
But can detectives even prove that Marian was murdered? When the DNA results return on the blood from Marian's bed, they get one step closer.
We weren't able to obtain her DNA. So what we had to do instead was obtain the DNA from Marian Fye's mother. And of course, each of the sisters told us they had not bled in that bed. They never slept in that bed.
At this point, everyone knows Divine did it, but it's gonna be an uphill battle trying to prove this because they still don't have a body. And prosecuting a case without a body was extremely hard.
think is that we have a murder case. But jurors could be a little skeptic. Well, how do we know this person is actually dead? And how do we know this person was actually murdered? It's very challenging.
Before moving forward with murder charges, detectives and prosecutors comb back over the case, looking for anything they may have missed.
We had a couple of things that we hadn't done. And one of those things on the list was to speak to a woman named Juliet. Juliet had been in a very brief relationship with Divine.
They had a daughter, but things didn't work out. They broke up, and she moved with her daughter to Brooklyn.
They're not expecting much. Maybe a little more background on Divine.
I dialed up Juliet and I explained who I was, that I was a prosecutor in D.C. and I was working on a homicide case, and I wanted to talk to her about a man that she knew by the name Divine.
Juliet's response may be just the break the prosecutors need.
She immediately said, "Oh, did he really kill that girl?"
Will these new clues bring DC detectives closer to the mysterious disappearance of Marian Fye?
When prosecutors building the murder case against 33-year-old Divine Austin reach out to his ex-girlfriend, Juliet Marshall, they learn far more than expected.
They're immediately caught off guard when Juliet says, "Oh my God, he killed that girl, just like he said he would."
My jaw dropped to the floor. I immediately said, "Hold on," put the phone on speakerphone and said, "You gotta hear this."
As detectives gather around the phone, Juliet tells them that she'd last spoken with Divine a little before Thanksgiving.
That means that the call occurred a few days before investigators believe that Divine murdered his fiancée, Marian Fye.
Juliet says she thought Divine was calling to check up on their daughter, but that wasn't the case.
Divine had called her on her cell phone, as he had done occasionally, because they had contact about their daughter. And he said, "Hey, Juliet, I'm in a relationship with this woman, and she doesn't know that I'm someone who should not be screwed with. And I want you to talk to her and tell her." So sure enough, Divine hands the phone to who we believe to be Marian Fye. And Juliet basically says, "Girl, you're crazy. You need to get out of this relationship. This dude is nuts."
Juliet says she was still wondering what that was all about when Divine called her back on the Friday after Thanksgiving.
When she answers the phone, he says, "Hey, it's Divine, and I just shot and killed this chick. And she's laying on the bed dead right now." And Juliet says, "Divine, you're crazy," and hangs up the phone.
Everything that Juliet is telling them aligns with the evidence that they have found thus far. And keep in mind, she was in Brooklyn, so there's really no way that she could have known all the details of what was going on. So there's a lot of credibility surrounding Juliet's story.
Juliet's statement finally gives detectives enough for murder charges. But when they go to take Divine into custody, they discover he's already in jail.
Divine is in jail for an armed robbery.
Detectives go to the jail and inform him that he's also been charged with Marian's murder.
He agreed to speak to the police without a lawyer present.
Come on, man, talk to me, man. Look, I mean, we ain't best friends or nothing. You ain't coming to my house for dinner, I'm not coming to yours. But this is just two dudes sitting in here talking, man.
To me, it's a classic example of a bonding type of interview. He is not confrontational. He's not sitting there calling him a thug or a liar. He would play on his sympathy for the children.
Help me let them sleep at night, man. They can't even sleep. This ain't what you intended.
After a while, Divine started to talk.
He begins by repeating what he's already told detectives about the night Marian disappeared.
He says that they are arguing in the bedroom.
And this time, he admits that there was a gun involved.
Although detectives doubt he's telling the whole truth.
Divine says that Marian was actually the one that pulled out the gun.
She grabbed the gun and pulled it on him? Okay, then what? She tried to take the gun from you. You tried to take it from her, okay?
He says he manages to grab it, somehow, amazingly, turn it on her.
And it went off. And then what happened? You believe she was dead. Right?
He actually admitted to killing Marian. He said it was in self-defense.
Divine says that once he realized what he'd done, he panicked.
He, in his word, totes the body downstairs.
He took Marian's body and hid her body from the kids.
He had the body there until he could get the kids out the very next day.
The children being in the house, where the children were located, what he did with the children after the murder, all of that was entirely consistent with what the children had said.
Divine says that once he'd gotten the kids out of the house the next day, he disposed of Marian's body.
Did you wrap the body up?
Black bag. Several black bags.
What do you mean, like trash bags?
He put it in the car and drive the car over to a restaurant in D.C. called Ben's Chili Bowl and throw it in a dumpster behind that.
Once Divine's confession is complete, investigators head to the restaurant and search for Marian's remains.
18 months have passed, and at this point, there's no remnants of the body at this place, if it was even there to begin with.
It's a bitter disappointment for detectives and Marian's family.
Marian's family, her kids, weren't able to say goodbye. They don't have a gravesite to go to.
However, when Divine goes on trial on January 18th, 2006, the family does get a chance for justice.
Going into trial, we felt cautiously optimistic. We had DNA. We had a confession. We had what we call ear witnesses, the kids.
Prosecutors contend that the murder stemmed from an argument between Divine and Marian.
They were arguing because he was supposedly seeing someone else, and it came to a boiling point.
Which, according to prosecutors, ended with Divine pulling a gun.
He was fed up with her for whatever reason, and he just shot and killed her. I think that is the best, most logical scenario of what actually happened.
When it's the defense's turn, they hammer on the one weakness in the prosecution's case.
Divine's attorneys didn't even address Divine's words. Instead, they argued there's no body. So how can you be so sure that this woman is in fact dead?
Juries want to know that a murder actually occurred. They need to see a body.
When the jury makes its decision, it all comes down to whether the lack of a body will be enough to raise reasonable doubt.
The jury came back and said guilty on second-degree murder. There wasn't a whole lot of evidence of premeditation, which is what you would have needed for the first-degree murder charge.
The judge sentences Divine to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 42 years.
We did ask for life without possibility of parole. Ultimately, the judge in the case did not agree.
But no amount of time served can give Marian's 5 children their mother back.
To me, that's just the worst, most tragic part of this case.
Marian's enthusiasm for life, her determination, and kindness will always be remembered by her children, family, and friends. She will continue to thrive in the hearts of her loved ones. Coming up on the next episode of the Fatal Attraction Podcast.
She was a teenage single mom raising 3 children.
If she went with her kids, she was working.
She worked 2 jobs.
She wanted her kids to have a good life.
It appeared to be in reach, too.
She had gotten a new job.
It would have been a life changer.
She was looking for love, and she met this new guy. Everything was starting to fall into place.
Until it fell to pieces.
A A small Tennessean is in shock after a horrifying crime involving a young mother profoundly impacts the entire community. What happened to Quintasia Tate? Tune in to the next episode of the Fatal Attraction Podcast. We will see you in the next episode.